better as well. I know we rescheduled this like 4 times maybe.
Yeah, we did.
But it's close to the end of the year, and it's like with the album coming out so late in the year as well, it's hard to fit it all in sometimes. So yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm glad we could make it work before the end of the year. Because
thank you.
Pretty much right after this, yeah, I'm gonna be. I will, like everyone in the world, mostly. I'm gonna be pretty busy with the holidays. So yeah, I'm just glad to be here, and thanks for having me again.
No, always, my friend. I always appreciate and love every time we do this. So again, thank you. And if you didn't know, Tom's in Brisbane, so every single time he does this with us,
not Brisbane, the Gold Coast,
Gold Coast,
but Brisbane time. Yeah. Brisbane time.
There you go. That's Englishman that knows nothing about any other time.
No. Don't worry, dude.
That's
you were right for the time zone. You were absolutely correct.
Okay, there we go then.
Yeah.
So this is a nice little Christmas gift for everybody to have Tom back to deep dive the brand new album. Firstly, Evie, thank you so much for the gifted subs and for everyone being here. Right, Tom, let's talk Hidden Realms.
All right.
So we were here a couple of years, I think it was 2022, and we were discussing.
I think so, yeah.
Was it Yonder? Actually, no, we were here last year for the last Galleons.
Oh yeah,
one.
Valiant Hearts.
But yeah, the last time we were talking Valiant Hearts, we were doing Yonder, which again everybody absolutely loved.
3 years ago.
I know, crazy how time flies, and I'm so delighted that we've got another Valiant Hearts album. So if you want to basically give underlay of basically Hidden Realms as a concept, as an album, I know it's got some basically infinity stones for each song that I'm looking forward to seeing more, hopefully.
In a sense, yeah. I also will remind you as well that if you do want to share the stream, like on your story or anything, I can repost that now as well. If
Sweet.
you want.
Yeah, I'll do that.
If you want to get more if you want to get more people in here while I'm explaining it.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Look, there's like a lot of different things that this album is inspired by and based on, mostly alchemy. But also like the hero's journey, which is like the biggest like underlying, I don't know if you'd call it a theme, because it's more of like an archetype. It's more of like a foundation for like every story, and especially fantasy stories that have like existed like since this thing was put down on paper by Joseph Campbell. So Joseph Campbell's hero's journey is basically like, if you've seen Lord of the Rings or you've seen any sci-fi movie or any fantasy movie, you basically know what the hero's journey is.
Yeah.
And every part of the album kind of like gets broken down into that journey, that hero's journey. And while it's not quite like a hero's journey, it's more of like the album itself acts as like a step-by-step, what would you call it? It's not like a recipe, but like a guidebook or like something like that, in that vein. I forget the word. I don't know why it escapes me, but something like that. It acts as like a list of ingredients, but not a recipe specifically, but like a step-by-step thing that acts as a layout for the creation of the Philosopher's Stone and alchemy, which is like obviously like the whole thing that alchemy is built on. It's all about that. It's all about achieving, immortality. It's about finding this thing that, sometimes it's literally a rock, sometimes it's literally a stone, or something that looks like a stone. But in other, I guess, interpretations or other, sects of alchemy, alchemy is a very wide spanning topic that has a lot of different interpretations and different opinions and different philosophers that are part of it. So some also believed it could be a human, or not a human person, but like a being that looks like a human, just something that embodies, in alchemy it's called basically a rebus, which is dude, even Elden Ring has it in their game. They it's like everywhere. Like alchemy is literally like everywhere. And I think that's what got me like that's what started to get me like interested in it in the first place. Like on like kind of I didn't really have an interest in this stuff until I started like seeing it more and realizing more in some of my like favorite things.
Yeah.
Like books, games, whatever. And I'm like, why? Like it just started to stand out to me more and more. So I think last time in my other interview talking about this, I said that I started to like just watch like YouTube videos of it to like fall asleep at night because it was kind of not like mundane, but it was like listening to like academic stuff like kind of still like puts me to sleep. Like it's kind of soothing and like a little bit monotonous. Like it's almost like you're listening to like a lecture.
Yeah.
In like university or high school or something. But I found it really interesting. So I would still listen to it, you know, like even, or listen to things that were related to, like alchemy, but like people talking about it on YouTube in reference to like video games and how certain video games use alchemy as like a theme or a plot point. And how like movies in many different forms use that, and just how many things that it's like woven into throughout pop culture in general. But yeah, so I'll get into that as we go with the songs, because they all represent like a specific part of the hero's journey, but also a part of that recipe in creating, you know, or achieving immortality, which is like again the whole point of alchemy, awesome. or the end goal, I should say. But yeah, this is gonna take. I don't know how long this is gonna take yet. I'm gonna try and do it as fast as possible and as concise as possible. But yeah,
no, you always smash it out the park, mate. It's like you said, they're called deep dives for a reason, and I think that's why everybody likes to. Especially with your songwriting, you always sort of go in depth. There's a story and that kind of thing. I love. I also kind of, I believe you're a big Thrice fan as well. I especially when I was listening to it, I know there's a lot of sort of elements. So I got a lot of Alchemy Index vibes, not necessarily with sort of the sound, but like same way it's structured. I don't know if that was intentional or if
a little bit, yeah. Like Thrice, I only actually started listening to them in like the last maybe year and a half or 2 years. Trenton was the one that introduced me to them, and I'd heard of them. I'd always heard of them, but they were always like a legacy post-hardcore band to me, like that I didn't really. I was more into our contemporaries at the time and newer bands, and I never really, you know, I never really looked back too often. I think that was, you know, my own fault. So when he started saying that, like, because even before I knew about Thrice and I knew that the Alchemy Index existed, I was already structuring and writing songs for this album about alchemy. So Trenton was like, oh, dude, if you don't know, like, do you know this album? Because that's like basically what this whole thing is. And that really kind of was a turning point in the writing for this album, where I had to talk to Igor and say, look, we need to like scrap, like, or not scrap, but like we need to really think about what this album is meant to be and what these songs on the album represent in terms of this narrative that we're trying to achieve. And if they don't represent what the album is trying to achieve, then we have to get rid of them, or at least like scrap them to use as songs later or as B-sides or something. And we probably had to get rid of like half of the album in the end, or like at least a quarter of it. But I feel like it feels like it was more than half of what was originally there.
Right.
Like that's why Venusian Fires and They Say Chivalry is Dead have quite a different sound to them compared to the back half of the album. I like that personally, and I kept those songs specifically to make them work and to find a way to transition into the later sound of the album. But a lot of the other songs that we cut have a similar like cadence and a similar like tone to those songs, and the full album would have sounded a lot more like those rather than what it does sound like. But it didn't have the same narrative impact. It didn't have the same sonic impact that I wanted the journey of listening to the album to have. Because that's all it's based around. Like, it's based around a hero's journey narratively, but I also wanted it to feel like it flowed like something where you like start off with all this energy and start off with all this like this intensity to kind of go on this journey, and then as you go through it, it kind of becomes more somber and more the energy still picks up towards the end again, but it really it has a more of a thoughtful what would you say, like a thoughtful I don't know, just something like there's like a pensiveness to it. It kind of like pulls and ebbs and flows and pulls and pushes a little bit more, or actually a lot more than the original tracks that we had for the album before they got cut. So yeah, I think Thrice definitely had sorry, just to get back to the point.
Yeah.
Thrice definitely had a huge impact on this album. More, I would say, honestly, conceptually, definitely the Alchemy Index, but in terms of sound, it was definitely more of Vaishu that kind of pushed us sonically for the sound of the songs, like Between the End and Where We Lie, Atlantic, Image of the Invisible, like a lot of those sort of sounds. That's obviously like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really really cool, because I love Thrice, and both of those albums are some of my favorites. So no, that's really cool to hear.
Dude, I can't believe it took me so long to get into them. Like, they're one of my favorite bands now. Like, for those that don't know, they actually obviously inspired Trenton a lot for Hands Like Houses as well. And I never knew like any of, that's the cool part about getting to chat and spend a lot of time with like one of your favorite vocalists in the world.
Yeah.
Who also like has now become one of my best friends. Like, you get to kind of like see where all their inspiration came from as well, and they share with you like all the stuff that that pushed them as a musician and inspired them as a musician as well. And it kind of gives you more insight into why the things that they made sound like that as well.
Sure.
So obviously, when you listen to Hands Like Houses, like Unimagine, Ground Dweller, even Into Dissonance, you can definitely still hear how Trenton's lyrical style, and I'm not giving like Thrice all the credit for that. Trenton's one of a kind, but yeah, like you can definitely see like elements and small sparks of Thrice in everything he does. So I never knew that, and now, yeah, it kind of like it blew my mind, like hearing these little things that I could attribute to Trenton also in Thrice's music. For example, Introduce Species by Hands Like Houses. I felt like when I first listened to Image of the Invisible by Thrice, I'm like they have those similar like chants and group vocals and call outs. And then I listened to like Introduce Species again, and I could see those like parallels that existed in their music at that time. I don't know if that's just me, but yeah, I listened to those two like back to back, and I was like, oh, these kind of have like a similar, like, I don't know, like palette to each other in a way. And I found that really interesting. So yeah, sorry, I'm gonna try, like I said, and be as concise as possible.
No, this is a deep dive, mate. No, that's a good point, but we will definitely get on to more about Trenton. Track 6 is one of my personal favorites you've ever released. It's so good.
Yeah,
but let's start
I love that song.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. I can't wait to talk about that one. Let's talk with the title track opening it up then. Hidden Realms.
Yeah. So the hero's journey, basically, there's so many different versions of it. Like, it's been written and rewritten so much over the years, but I tried to go with what would be closest to the original intention of it, which is kind of a little more simplified, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure if it is so simplified. But this is basically like the call to adventure and like leaving the, I don't know if you would call it the ordinary world, but the world that you know. So you're basically, this song acts as like the gateway, the entry point, the reason for like, or not necessarily the reason, but the starting point of the album, both metaphorically or in a meta sense, like you're starting here literally as the listener, but also the character starts here, and it's like kind of like, what would you, how would you put it? I'm trying to think of like the word to specifically I don't know what it is. It's yeah, it's not coming to me, but yeah, essentially like the call to adventure is what Joseph Campbell calls it. He calls it like the reason for going out, the reason for beginning the journey. And this one doesn't have really too much to do with alchemy itself, but it's more like just taking all like those elements of inspiration, like it obviously mentions like fairy tales, like Neverland and stuff like that, which is not the first time that I've put that in a song, but yeah, like many different things. Like this album talks about like Arthurian legend, fairy tales, like other mythical realms. Yeah, it I tried to like just slam as much into it as possible, but you know, it's
yeah, no, it's like a lot of your albums. Like if I think of sort of Mesmer as well, everything's sort of a journey. So let's start that journey off. This is track 1, Hidden Realms. Again, as normal, if you guys have any questions for Tom, because I saw one of yours, we'll come to that afterwards. But Tom might answer it as we go through anyway. But let's go. This is Hidden Realms. That was track 1, Hidden Realms. So good. Rolf, you made a good point about the like the church bells or the gongs towards the end. I love sort of the atmosphere that creates.
Oh yeah. The tubular bells.
Tubular bells.
Technically, yeah, I don't, maybe similar to church bells, I guess, but yeah, like used in yeah, like pretty much, or maybe not every track on the album, but that was like another goal of mine, because I did all the sound design for the album as well. So like I chose all the sounds, did all the sound effects, like especially like Thalassa took a long time.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, choosing all the sounds and choosing like how those sounds were going to carry throughout the album was very important to me. So yeah, like a lot of the songs on the album, including the next one, have like tubular bells. It's definitely like more orchestral of an album than it is, like electronic. Like there's only like 2 electronic tracks, I think, like Heaven Sent and Elixir, really. Like The Alchemist has some electronics, but it's not heavily electronic. But yeah, like all of the sound design on the album, I wanted that to reflect like more like fantasy feeling or like fantasy elements. So like using like a lot of stuff like that to kind of elicit that emotional response of like what you would, I don't know, like what you would hear in like watching a fantasy movie, or like even going back to Thrice again and looking at what instruments they use in albums like Vaishu and the Alchemy Index, and how to like make something feel like more fantastical and more like lush, I guess you would say. And even like Ground Dweller, like even with Trenton, he uses plenty of tubular bells on Ground Dweller, plenty of like vibraphone, plenty of different types of bells, plenty of just so many different sounds on that album that blow my mind. Just there's too many to go into, honestly. There's
it's incredible.
On a lot of tracks in Ground Dweller and with Thrice, they use a lot of those same instruments. So
yeah,
it was also about chasing that like that sort of specific sound as well. That I wanted.
Yeah, and it also makes sort of like the album more cohesive, doesn't it? Track to track as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It gives everything like a glue.
Yes,
in terms of like the sonics and the theming of like the sound design itself. It gives everything. It kind of like. Yeah, it gives everything a theme in a way, musically at least.
Let's move on to another one of my favourites, Vanishing Act Track 2. Absolutely love this one.
Yeah, so this is obviously the second step in the hero's journey, and the album doesn't reflect literally every step in the hero's journey, but it does reflect like the main important ones, I guess you would say. But this is like the refusal of the call. So like usually in the hero's journey, take Lord of the Rings for example, you have like Frodo in the Shire. Gandalf comes to him with the ring. He says, you need to go on a journey. Frodo's like, I don't want to leave the Shire. It's like, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to, I don't, why does it have to be me? Why do I have to take the ring? Ask someone else to do it. So like, that's the part of the hero's journey, that this is like refusal of like wanting to, go on the journey in general because of either doubt or like, you basically it's usually doubt or stepping outside their comfort zone is like one of the main things that always gets used in like in movies or games or whatever. They either don't want to leave because of they don't think they can do it, or for some reason like they don't want to leave family, or usually it's just as simple as leaving the life that they know for something that will obviously be full of danger and full of hardship and all that sort of stuff. So Vanishing Act is kind of like a commentary on that, while also being the first step in the alchemical process, which is blackness, or it's like when everything kind of begins. It's like the initiation of the procedure, which is when everything, because in making the Philosopher's Stone, you go through four major steps, which is illustrated by colors, or I guess you would call them colors.
Yeah.
Technically, two of them are shades, black and white, but you go from black to white to yellow to red, right? And yellow isn't really illustrated in this album in detail or that step in specific, but I think I would attribute it to like Vermilion or something,
right?
Because Sulfur is yellow, Vermilion is like the song about it's technically, the name means red, but the alchemical step that it represents, which I'll get to later, is sulfur. So technically you could attribute that to Vermilion in my mind. But Vanishing Act is just like the I don't want to go, and if I go, then who, like if I disappear, then who will will anyone remember me? Will anyone care that I've gone? So it's like, basically, like, it can be seen as like a specific commentary on feeling like that as an individual, like even outside of the context of the album. But in terms of the context of the album, it's like, it's mostly just about that feeling of being afraid that you won't make it back in a way.
Sure. Awesome. This is track 2, Vanishing Act. Curse, we'll get to that when we get to Thalassa. Obviously, we'll go into a bit with the process with Trenton. But this is track 2, Vanishing Act.
From the pride that you swallow, you try to stand out, but you're always blending in to this fantasy world we're all living in. Whatever you want now doesn't really matter, does it? We all return to the dust, and the moment will be nothing. Our lives so well planned out, you can bring us all this suffering like a dormant volcano that water before erupted. Watch me vanish right in front of your eyes. I dematerialize. My fear no longer leaves me paralyzed. Screaming in the dead of the night to make the stars align. Hoping I reappear just one more time. One more time.
That was Vanishing Act. My God, I love that song. And from the chat, a lot of people are the same. So I mean,
that's probably one of the earliest songs that was written after Yonder, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Venusian Fires and Vanishing Act are like the two earliest songs written that still made it onto this album. A lot of the other ones just didn't make it for many reasons, like I spoke about earlier. But yeah, that was possibly that could have been written before Venusian Fires. Even I'm not sure. Like that could be like the oldest track on this album. It's probably close to 3 years old.
That's
I would say
that's cool to know that a bit of backstory as well. That's no, that's so cool. It's funny that we'll move on to track 3, and you mentioned "And They Say Chivalry Is Dead," which it does have sort of a bit. I mean, it's still very Valiant Hearts, but it does have a bit of a.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just tell from the intro; it's quite riffy as well.
Yeah, very Closure in Moscow inspired.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Closure in Moscow and like a mix of who else were we listening to at the time? It's like kind of J-rock, like very Japanese band inspired. So yeah, I would say like a mix of that and Closure in Moscow. I still don't know why people attribute whenever we write something like this to being like Dance Gavin Dance sort of sounding, but I guess like I don't know, but I don't hear it at all. I don't seen so many people say that. I don't see Valiant Hearts as like anything close to even like to Dance Gavin Dance, other than it being like, I mean, I don't see it at all. Honestly,
I fully agree. If anything, and I know we've talked about Andrew a lot, still not fully. I would put you closer to Idola personally, but again, not fully sort of similar. But I would, Dance Gavin Dance is sort of widdly woo guitars, and it's very sort of strange.
Yeah, we don't really have like any. We might have like dueling guitars sometimes in Valiant Hearts songs, but even Galleon songs we have like dueling guitars, but nothing's ever really like that chaotic. I feel like it's all more controlled. I feel like if anything, like there might be like there's like a little bit of inspiration in like Downtown Battle Mountain 1 in like everything that I do and everything we do as bands, because that's like a big, I think like for many musicians in post-hardcore that are my age, like that's a big that album was a big catalyst for the type of music that we like and we write, and like to a degree Downtown Battle Mountain 2 as well, but like that's pretty much like where Happiness maybe as well, and Death Star, but like pretty much after the Kurt era is like where any influence like pretty much ends for both our bands. Like we always, if we're looking for like a specific sound or something to like get inspired by again, like the only Dance Gavin Dance albums we really go back and listen to are the Johnny ones or maybe the Kurt ones. I
definitely hear that.
But Chivalry is about what was I going to say? In terms of like the musical inspiration, it's definitely more of like closer to something like Vanguard or maybe like I forget how to pronounce it. The Arecibo message from Closure in Moscow's First Temple, like definitely more inspired by like First Temple and the Penance and the Patience from Closure in Moscow than anything. So I
it's the guitar especially. I think I was on a coach somewhere as soon as the album came out, and I remember when this hit, I was like, whoa, that guitar is it was not that it wasn't expected, but I don't know, just that early in the album maybe. But no, it's
that's
a cool song.
that's kind of like where the album kind of shifts a little bit again into that sort of sound, and then going into Venusian Fires where it kind of carries over a little bit, and then that sort of like not noodly feeling, but that sort of like upbeat kind of is like a little bit of that sound still left over into Nausicaa. So you kind of like the goal of it is to kind of like go and because Vanishing Act, Hidden Realms. These first 4 tracks were all the holdovers from like the original form of the album before anything was cut, right? So I wanted to front load the album with all these older tracks that all were written together, so they felt cohesive in a way, like they were all written at the same time. But then I had to find a way to slowly get that sound to kind of fade away from the album. So Nausicaa really does act as like a song that bridges that gap between the sound of like Thalassa and the last 3/4 of the album, and Venusian Fires. So there's still like a little bit of that upbeatness, that light-hearted sort of like positive feeling that those songs have.
Yeah.
That kind of slowly by the end of Nausicaa kind of like disappears into the background, which I really like. And it kind of becomes a bit more contemplative as you go into Thalassa. So I really like that we found a way to like smoothly transition out of one feeling on the album into another, and I feel like the album does that multiple times, which is really cool.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, Chivalry is basically like, in terms of the alchemical process, it's meant to be like the base metal. So like obviously in alchemy, the goal is like to turn base metals into gold and achieve immortality, or I should say one of the goals is to turn base metals into gold. So Chivalry kind of like acts as that base metal sort of catalyst for, turning something to gold.
Sure.
And also inspired by like Arthurian legend. Obviously it talks about like Excalibur and the Lady of the Lake and all that like sort of stuff. It's just to like reinforce that fantasy feeling, and just to again like reiterate that this is like a basically like a fantasy album, basically just a hero's journey, trying to hit on all those points that make it feel like something that's transportive and kind of makes you feel like you're not just listening to a song about someone. Songs that I've written plenty of times before, but just someone talking about their own problems, like,
sure.
Which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's something that's meant to feel completely removed from real life, and that's what the goal of the whole album is basically about. So
awesome.
Yeah, I feel like this album. Oh, and in terms of the hero's journey, this is basically like the they call it like supernatural aid. Like it's when the hero kind of gets, again, using Lord of the Rings as an example, it's basically, I feel like this would still be Gandalf, like giving the ring to Frodo, like giving him aid and giving him tools that he would need, like lambus bread, like all the stuff that he like needs to put in his backpack for the journey, giving him or actually no, it would be when they get to Rivendell, I suppose, because it would be like when actually who gives him the sword? No, Bilbo gives him the fucking sword.
He does.
God, I haven't watched those movies in so long. So I guess you could chalk it up to both, like the Rivendell part where they get to Rivendell after that's after the Nazgul fight on top of in the ruins. But supernatural aid is basically just like the hero being given something that will help them on their journey. So that's basically what the song is about.
Awesome.
In general, yeah.
Awesome. Everyone enjoy. For some reason you haven't listened to the album, which I can imagine not many people haven't if you're here, but just enjoy this riff. It's so good. This is track 3, and They Say Chivalry Is Dead.
I'm out of time, out of place. Have I been here before? I'm pulled deep down into the water, into the blackest depths they make, while waiting for the blade to be bestowed by the lady of the lake. And I'll be fighting for you, whatever it may take. I may bend but never break. I'll be your sword, be your savior, trade my life, just be your favor. If I die for you, would you cry for me too? I would die fighting for you, be your son, be your savior. If I die for you, would you cry for me too? When they say chivalry is now I feel like my body isn't with my head, and I exist interplaces my dreams and my bed. A never-ending story, no idea how it ends. Imagination so fragile, 'cause it's only pretend. I glimpse a rainbow in the dark, the colors turn so vivid and so stark against the night sky. I'll be your sword, be your savior, trade my life, just be your favor. If I die for you, would you cry for me too? When they say chivalry is
I love how groovy it goes right at the end there, going absolute ham on the
Yeah,
guitar.
what I love most about that song is that I think it was like the starting point of this album for experimenting more with songs that kind of tried to defy conventional structure like a little bit. Like you'll notice that instead of like having that third chorus at the end, it's kind of like a fake out where you kind of like expect that third chorus to come back, but instead it's like it has the chorus melody of the vocals, but then it kind of like fakes you out and it brings you back to that riff from earlier in the song to close it out. So
Yeah, I do love
I was
that
trying to
part.
like play around more with like listeners' expectations of like what they thought was going to happen. Like, because in my opinion, with Yonder, I feel like I played it really safe with just like putting a chorus at the end of every song, making sure there were like 3 choruses in every song, and just making it like as expect. Like you knew what you kind of could expect or what's the word, anticipate what was going to happen more on that album. I feel like with this album I wanted that. I feel like part of listening to music for me specifically is I love when I can't anticipate what a song is going to do, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
No, definitely.
I love being surprised by a song. I like it's a balancing act of both, right? It's like you want to be surprised by a song, but at the same time it can be unsatisfying when a song doesn't kind of go where you expect it to. So I think there's many moments in this album where the song goes in a direction that you would expect it to, in maybe a way that you didn't expect, but like it still carries like a melody through, or it carries a chord progression through, but it still changes and it still does it in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Or there's parts like this on Chivalry where it kind of like you assume it's going to go back to a chorus and then it doesn't at all. And I like that. I like having that mixture of maybe like satisfactory subversion to where a song will go, but also at the same time having many songs on the album that are just satisfactory in the way that you can anticipate what they're going to do, and it feels satisfying in its own way. So there's like two different things that I was trying to achieve or balance in this album, and those things are definitely, you know, what I also like about music when I listen to it. So a lot of the time when we write these albums, they're basically what we enjoy about music, right? Like I feel like that reflects what most artists write, and then you can kind of get a kind of like a judge, or a not judge, that's not a good word for it, but a you can kind of get a read on you know, the music that they like and the music that they listen to through the music that they make, right? Because otherwise, why would they be making music like that? But generally, artists make music for themselves first and foremost, and then, you know, they just hope that it has that it will have an audience and that people will also like it. So, yeah, those things are all things that I like about like listening, like the music that I listen to or like to listen to.
Yeah.
So like not knowing what to expect, but also having, you know, satisfactory moments in songs where I know what to expect.
Yeah, no, it's like you say, it's a good balancing act of sort of gauging what the audience will think will happen, and then maybe a couple of twists and turns, which I think Chivalry definitely does. Let's move on to track 4. This was the main single, I believe, Venusian Fires. What can you tell us about this one?
Also one of the oldest songs on the album. This was like, we gave people this song as like a very, very early demo for like when we did the Odyssey Kickstarter. So this was one of the songs that was one of the, you know, in that like group of songs that we gave them as demos. So yeah, it's been floating around out there in that form, that really, you know, not well put together demo for a long time. And it's obviously changed a bit since then. Like the intro is different. In some ways, like the drums got removed for the most part from the intro. And I made it more about like just the strings and the bells and the, I think, vibraphone or piano. I think it's piano, yeah. And in terms of like the hero's journey, this is like crossing the first threshold. So in the hero's journey, there's like 4 thresholds. The first threshold is like the first plot point, essentially. So this is not that there's no plot before this, obviously, but it's like, I feel like in this, I'm just going to keep using Lord of the Rings as an example. So like the first threshold is when they leave the Shire, right? That's the first, like, that's the first, actually, no, that would, I don't know if you would consider that the first threshold. The first threshold might be like when they fight the Nazgul or something. Like it's when you first get a taste for like what the world outside is like.
Yeah.
And I guess you could attribute that to that whole section of them leaving the Shire and then like discovering the Nazgul on the road, like the whole get off the road thing, and then they get their first taste of what is out there, what is out there in the world, outside their bubble, in a sense. And I feel like Venusian Fires is both that, and in terms of the alchemical process, it's also like the first cardinal element, which is fire, and then it also is like a commentary from the perspective of the character of the album, which is the alchemist. Or one of the characters, I should say. There's 3 characters on the album. So this song uses the way that the character speaks about themselves, like in each song, or how the song speaks about each character, I should say, like using words like you or I or they, and then like in other songs using like he and she, basically to reflect parts of the alchemical process that basically go into making what I was talking about earlier, which is called a rebus. And a rebus is basically an alchemical creature or an alchemical being that is comprised of both male and female aspects that basically it becomes immortal. So if you take Elden Ring, That's actually what Marika and Radagon are based off of in Elden Ring. So that is the rebus, basically something that can transform. Essentially, what it is, like it can appear both as male or female, or have, you know, elements of both. And that is used in so many different pieces of media. Like, it's used in so many things. Elden Ring was just the one that caught my attention the most, because I was like, they use that as a big, like, sorry, spoilers for Elden Ring lore if you don't know.
Yeah.
But they use that as a big, like, plot twist. They're like, Radagon is Marika is like a huge, like, plot twist in the lore when you get to finding that out yourself.
Yeah.
And that is all alchemy. Marika is basically the Philosopher's Stone in Elden Ring, like an immortal being, created by, you know, the DLC goes into it more, but basically a being that was created by this, you know, race of people that exist in the shadow realm of the DLC, the Hornsent. Sorry, I'm not going to go on too long about Elden Ring or Lord of the Rings, but
we'll have to do another stream about Elden Ring.
Just to clarify, like, what the meaning of it is. Yeah, so they, like, basically a literal Philosopher's Stone in the form of a person or a being that's comprised of those aspects is what, like, both Marika is, but also what this character by the end of the album becomes. So yeah, this song, Venusian Fires, is like, it's about, like, the creator talking about, like, the muse of it all and how it's inspired them to create this thing. It's also kind of like a love song, but, like, that's also because, like, this creator is creating at first out of love, right? But same with, like, take, like, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, for example, and stories like that, where I mean, I couldn't say that Victor Frankenstein was creating out of love. I that's, like, kind of maybe a bit antithetical to the story. I feel like Frankenstein is definitely more than that, and he's definitely not creating just for the love of doing it. But
yeah, sure.
You know, it's a lot of different emotions and obviously themes that go into it. But in this sense, it's, like, meant to just be a song about inspiration and being inspired by something. Whether that's a person, whether that's, like, like the song uses as a metaphor or an analogy, the fires of Venus, being able to see, or not being able to see things that are so far away and so incomprehensible to, you know, us as human beings, that it becomes inspiring, and we think about these things in different abstract ways, that it becomes, like, something that, you know. Yeah, it's kind of just trying to, like, hammer on that sort of, like, emotional impact of being inspired, I guess.
Nice.
So yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Let's go into one of the big hitters of the album. Well, I personally think they all are, but yeah, main single. This is Venusian Fires.
watching Venusian fires as they burn through the galaxy. Like Venusian fires from a fire, how you shine like a queen. I'm inspired by you. Like Venusian fires burning endlessly for the love that I gotta say. You inspire me. If I'm dreaming, please don't wake me from my sleep, 'cause I need you to hold me on to breathe more easily.
That was Venusian Fires. What a banger, as always. Yeah, I love that track. Track 5.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's such a huge track. Again, it's what we were touching on earlier. It's that sort of thin line between what you expect and a little bit of sort of surprise to the listener as well. It's such a great track.
Yeah, honestly, that song was like one that, even though it was so old, I was like, I really want this song to still make it onto the album, and I think it was like one of the main reasons that I wanted the album to be based on alchemy, because I'm like, I have this song, it's, you know, obviously got fire in the name, but I'm like, how can I make this song fit in with everything else that we've been writing? So then it was part of the reason why I went that direction as well.
Nice.
But yeah, I wanted to make sure it definitely made it onto the album.
No, absolutely. Track 5, we move on to Nausicaa. What can we find out about this one?
So this is the first song that starts using the words like she in terms of like talking about the character. So like this is the introduction to like the second character of the album, and then I think Thalassa, Thalassa does introduce the male aspect of the album. So there's like two storylines in parallel going on at the same time throughout this section of the album, where it's basically like talking about like these elements of alchemy that are both attributed to these two aspects of like humanity in a sense. So this one is like when that concept gets introduced, and it's basically like it's, yeah, I guess in terms of the hero's journey, it would be, I don't know if I had that written down actually. Let me see. Oh, I guess it's like the first ordeals. So it's like the first, like in the hero's journey, there's like they're kind of like grouped together a little bit, but it's like they're called trials.
Right.
So like this is like the first trial of the album, and I think that's how I saw like all of these ones that came after. So like, yeah, Nausicaa, Thalassa, Enchante, Vermilion, these are like all trials in a sense, where these characters have to go through these kind of ordeals or challenges that will allow them to reach this final goal of becoming this immortal being. Or you could also see it as it's the creator of this whole thing, the alchemist that's, you know, gets spoken about closer to the end, who is either putting them through this or is using someone or two people in this case to create something that is greater than the sum of its parts. So I don't really have a specific answer for that. Like, I didn't really think about that too deeply as like, oh, what is the motivation for doing this? It's more just about taking those individual elements, similar to alchemy itself, taking individual elements and turning them into something greater than the sum of their parts, or greater than, you know, they would be individually. So Nausicaa is like obviously about air. It's like the second element, which is technically the last element in the chain of, you know, not chain of command, but in the sequence of elements that usually it goes like fire, water, earth, and then air.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to, due to like, as I was talking about earlier, the sonic sound of how the album transitions, this needed to be second in sequence, and it doesn't really matter too much. Like, I think I also saw that in Alchemy that between fire and water sits air in some interpretations. So like I was using pretty much anything I could find to justify changing the order around, but there are like obviously different ways that you can do it for different reasons, and Alchemy is so full of those things that, you know, pretty much everything works in some way or another, with it being basically like a, you know, a pseudoscience, like almost like science fiction sort of thing. So yeah, it's very it can be very loose, and at times it can be very, very specific. So yeah, Nausicaa is just like the introduction to that feminine aspect and the first ordeal of, you know, achieving a connection with that element of air. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole explanation for it, I guess.
Awesome. Let's go into track 5 then. This is Nausicaa.
We'll make a bridge from above to an island of gold, where the shapeless are shown and the ancient fade away while the young will roll. She is walking on the wires above the clouds. She is trying to find a balance, but she'll fall down. She is static while the world spins around. She is trying to find a way off the merry-go-round. She's all the birds near and far will start to flock to her, but her wings, heavy heart, has
Ending perfectly encapped by the appearance of your cat.
Yeah, one of my cats. Yeah.
What nice.
Oh, she must be tired.
I
She
bet.
always does this when she's tired.
Bless her. She looks lovely. Again, another great track. Now, moving on to track 6, and I could easily say it's my favourite. But there is another couple especially. I love the whole album, but I think Thalassa especially, I'd probably put on my Tom Byrne Mount Rushmore. That's how good I think it is. What can you say about that?
I can't take all the credit. Trenton does a lot of incredible work on this song as well,
and Igor obviously as well. But
yes, yeah. But I actually love how the first that you hear of Trenton on the album is not actually on Thalassa. It's on Nausicaa with the group vocals towards the end. That's actually Trenton and his mate that did those vocals. So Trenton's actually in a lot more of the songs than just Thalassa on the album. He's in Nausicaa, Thalassa, Enchante. He's in The Alchemist. He's in Heaven Sent, and he's in Yukon. So Trenton is actually in like half of the album, essentially, doing group or gang vocals, you could also call them.
Yeah.
But I like that Nausicaa kind of like subconsciously gets his voice into the album and into your head before he ever appears on Thalassa. I feel like that's a really cool like little subconscious thing that the album does. Oh my god. Sorry, my cat's just whacking me in the head with her tail. But yeah, I feel like it really kind of what would you say? It like primes you for Thalassa, which obviously he's very obviously you hear him a lot clearer on, but like Nausicaa does kind of introduce him in a subtle way, which I really like. But yeah, Thalassa is obviously like one of the most important songs that we've ever done because it involves Trenton. Like having him on the track is still like a highlight of my entire musical career to this point. This band started as a band that was basically heavily inspired by Hands Like Houses, specifically, Ground Dweller and Unimagine. And, we've been wanting to work with him for years, and I feel like we were never really ready for it until now, because I think that we needed to take as long as we did to make this album to make sure that it was, up to a quality standard that, like I wanted it to be a song that he would be able to sing on, and you would be able to, look at that as a whole and be like, yeah, that could be like a, that's up to the quality of what Trenton would sing on, right? Like that's something that you would expect from him, right? Something that that achieves multiple things, that it achieves being a song that is of the quality and what would you say? Not just quality, but creativity, I suppose. Like not to toot my own horn, but we specifically spent a lot of time, or I specifically as well spent a lot of time, like working on the sound design for this song, making sure it was something that, and this was before that Trenton even chose this as a song to feature on, but like spending a lot of time on all the songs on this album and this song in specific to make it something that felt like, I don't know, just like take all that inspiration from like Hands Like Houses, Thrice, and Trenton had a lot of input on helping me find the sound for this song, so it makes sense that he's on it.
Yeah.
But it's a song that I feel like you could listen to and be like, yeah, that is close to the quality or the sound of, like early Hands Like Houses stuff.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
that's really what I wanted for a song that he would be on. I wanted something that would feel kind of like nostalgic, but at the same time, it's not written by Hands Like Houses, it's written by us, but it still has a lot of those same qualities. And it could, rise to the occasion, of, having him on that song and have him elevate it to feeling even closer to that than it already did. So yeah, this song definitely made the most sense to have him on. But we also at one point, I think he was almost going to be on The Alchemist as well. So everything happens for a reason, and I'm glad it was this song. It's one of my favorites that I've ever written, that I've ever worked on, that I've done the sound design for. Like, there is so much of my personal time in this album, more than ever before. Like, just months. It has to be months of time over the span of a few years that I've spent on just the sound design for doing this album. But this is basically the introduction of like the male aspect of that alchemical process for the album, and it's where the story kind of like starts to alternate between the feminine aspect and the male aspect, and they go in turns now. So these are all like the ordeals of these two characters and what they have to face to or you could also see this as being one character with two aspects that are not necessarily at odds with each other, but that have clear definition and that are trying to consolidate or trying to coalesce or join into this one greater thing, I guess you could say. So it doesn't necessarily need, like, I never really thought about it too deeply like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be two characters separately. But like in some iterations of this concept album, I also think of that it's all from the perspective of the alchemist, and the alchemist is trying to achieve this using their own body or using their own being to do this process. So I don't really have an answer for whether it's like three literal separate characters or whether they're just separate in the sense of like it's just a deconstruction of, it could be a deconstruction of one character, or it could be three separate characters that all get, kind of by the end of the album consolidated into one. So yeah, Thalassa is basically obviously water. It's the introduction of that, male aspect or the masculine aspects. It's basically like a metaphorical like burial at sea. So these next two songs are essentially going to be like the death of those, like the ego death or the death of those aspects of this character that then get reborn, later in the album. And basically Enchante and Vermilion basically act as like the rebirth parts of the album for these two aspects. So yeah, Thalassa is like Nausicaa and Thalassa basically act as like the death of those aspects. So, which is funny because like they're the first songs where they're introduced, but they're the story of, by the end of Nausicaa, like she's essentially like falling from the sky. By the end of Thalassa, he's being drowned at sea. And then Breathless kind of breaks those two up. I'll go into that afterwards, but yeah, it's essentially like a story of death and rebirth through these ordeals. And this is like the second act of the album. So Act 1 is like Hidden Realms, Vanishing Act, Chivalry, and Venusian Fires. And then this is like Act 2 of the album. And there's 4 acts in total to mirror the 4 elements of alchemy. But yeah, that basically sums up Thalassa, I suppose.
Awesome. Everybody enjoy this. What a track. This is track 6, Thalassa. as I thought. A lot of love in chat for that song, especially the chorus. So good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It was a long road getting Trenton on a song. Trust me. Like the conversation for that started like, I think like almost after Yonder came out, like 2023 maybe. So like 2 years.
Wow. Awesome. Let's move on to track 7, Breathless.
So Breathless is also an older song that still made it onto the album. I think that was written like maybe 2023 or 2024. So it's at least like it's probably not one of the oldest songs on the album, but maybe like around the midpoint of when we were writing. But basically it follows on from like both Thalassa and Nausicaa, and like obviously it talks about like the loss of breath is kind of exists in both songs. So like altitude, like with air, like losing breath due to altitude. Thalassa drowning, obviously. So Breathless is like another song that's like from the perspective again of outside of the two like feminine and masculine aspects of the album of Alchemy. It's again back to that singular focus of like I and you, and talking from like a first person perspective rather than a third person perspective.
Sure.
Which is basically like talking about like the death of those things, but how no matter what they'll be loved and cherished always. Which is like, at first it was like a love song for me, but then I found this kind of like intersection in the album to put it here that kind of like acts as a memorial or like a eulogy for the death of these two aspects before their rebirth into something else. So yeah, it's kind of like a perfect place for it on the album, because it's both to do with air and water. Obviously with Thalassa, with that character, like, or that aspect of that character drowning, and then with air, like obviously air is breath is air, so it just made sense to put it here, really. And then this is like essentially the I guess you could maybe call it the crossing of the second threshold, but I don't think that really comes yet. I think that's more like Vermilion. I think when we get there. So this is more like another ordeal, or like part of the ordeals. Possibly like you could call it the Supreme Ordeal, which is one of like the main plot points of the hero's journey. Which is I don't know. There's so many different versions of the hero's journey that it gets a bit muddy on like what happens where in the graph or the diagram of what it is, but I guess you could just say it's the eulogy, I suppose, for those things that came before. So those two songs that came before,
right?
It's a eulogy placed between, placed before the rebirth of those things. So yeah.
Awesome. Let's go with track 7. This is Breathless. Again, another absolute banger. I love that track.
Yeah, that was like one of the, I think like probably like one of the first songs that for this album specifically that I don't know, like I was talking about earlier, like the expectation of like songs that subvert your expectations, or songs that just feel satisfyingly like you can anticipate in a satisfying way. And that's like probably the main example on this album of a song being you can anticipate what's going to happen in a satisfying way. But I feel like that was one of the first songs we wrote for this album that felt like that. Like then from there, everything else was kind of like in the other direction, where we're like, how can we subvert expectation? But yeah, there's a line in that song where it says like, everything that I lack, I found in you. And that's mainly like, especially that line is to illustrate that like both of these things need each other. So like the both of these aspects, these alchemical aspects, they require each other to work to not necessarily exist, but to feel complete. And when it says like, you could see it from two different perspectives. The more like, you could remove it from the context of the album and it can be like a sappy romantic love song, right? But then in the context of the album, I see it differently. I see it as almost a way of like this character with these two distinct aspects within themselves to be saying essentially like, I need both of these things equally, or I need both of these things to complete each other, and I don't want to lose them, essentially. So that it kind of like takes a step out from the third person perspective, like I said, and it kind of like, it's like a track for like introspection and understanding why these things are needed, and why these things like understanding this character's emotion for these parts of themselves, like almost like a self realization moment, or like a self-reflection moment in a way.
Sure. Following that then onto track 8, Enchanté.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Enchanté, I think Enchanté and Vermilion are kind of like sister songs because they were written at the same time. I told Igor I wanted like I needed like a forest song, I needed a water song. Actually, like Thalassa is grouped in there as well. I needed a desert song, so like Vermilion, Enchanté, Thalassa, and I guess that's the only. I think those three were all written around the same time. I'm like, I need water. I need songs for these specific feelings and elements. So like Enchanté, probably very inspired on Igor's end by Chrono Trigger, which has like the forest theme from Chrono Trigger is very inspirational for this for this song on the album. For Vermilion, there's like a few songs that were inspiration. There's like Desert Rose by Sting. There's like near replicant Forest of Lost Forest, as well as obviously Gerudo Desert theme from Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And there was one more that was like another desert song, but I forget. But I spent so long just looking for like references and similar sounding songs that gave like the feeling of by obviously my mate by Floya, the song Epiphany, which is very desert feeling, like very has that specific feeling that we were trying to get to, because we needed something that represented like earth, air, fire, and water. But Vermilion is kind of like, it was difficult to place because we did Enchanté and we already had the song for earth then. So what would Vermilion become? Vermilion was like also earth, but I thought in alchemy there is something called the Tria Prima, which is basically these three aspects that cover like salt, sulfur, and mercury. So vermilion could be reflected as sulfur in a way, even though it's called vermilion and it's red. But for the sake of just like sand and sand like quality that sulfur has, just I'm like, well, I like the idea of red sand. Let's just go with that. But the song can actually inhabit that element of alchemy. Because I don't know, beneath a lot of sand and a lot of deserts, you can find sulfur deposits, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, but speaking of Enchante specifically, this goes back to like the female aspect and talking like saying like she again, so like it's back to a third person perspective. This is basically like her falling from the sky into this Delphic forest, which basically like there's a lot of like Greek wording in this album as well, like Thalassa, Nausicaa, Delphi, like they're all Greek things. Like I don't know why, I just have like I just like Greek names for some reason.
Yeah, they do sound extra cool.
I think they sound extra cool, but they're also like very pretty, but also kind of still mythical feeling, like they have that quality to them. So like the Forest of Delphi is like from Greek mythology, I believe. Hopefully I'm not getting that wrong. It's been a while since I researched it. And then like Thalassa is obviously the Greek goddess of the sea. Nausicaa is like obviously there's Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, which is from Studio Ghibli, but then there's also that's a name taken from Greek mythology. I think she was like a princess of. Let me just look it up so I'm not getting it wrong.
No, of course.
So yeah, a key. I think she's not like a god or a Greek goddess or anything. She's like a princess that helps, which is funny because this movie is coming out soon, but also because we wrote an album called Odyssey. But she's a princess that helps Odysseus in Homer's Odyssey. So yeah, it was kind of just like finding like thematic threads to just, even in the naming of the album, of songs on the album, just finding thematic threads that we can use to kind of like make this, even the song names feel consistent. So
Yeah.
like I like using a lot of names that aren't English. So like even Enchante, that's French.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like it. I feel like it's more interesting than just calling something like mythical, like mystical forest or something.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
So yeah, it's really just this is like when you get into like their rebirth a little bit. So like this is her like hitting the earth after falling from the sky and basically being buried in this forest, this mystical forest that basically where these fantastical creatures live, or like these fairies, or whatever you want to call it, like just these otherworldly beings exist, where she, over the course of the song, is rebirthed into the world as something new that after going through these trials. So yeah, it's like a burial in the earth for her in this like mystical forest, and then by the end of the song, like coming out of it as something new again. And then Vermilion I'll get to, but has the same sort of quality.
Yeah. Do you want to touch on?
Yeah.
Do you want, just with what you've explained with them kind of going together, do you want to explain Vermilion as well, and we'll play them back to back? A cool thing as well.
Sure.
Cartabon did also put in the chat that Vermilion pigment was made using a mineral made of mercury sulfide also.
I think maybe I read that somewhere, and I was like that might have been like when I was trying to like research like how I could make things work, and I came across something like that, like
nice.
within like, I don't know, could have been like the alchemy wiki or some shit, I don't know, but yes, yeah, Vermilion, it does still have ties to both mercury and sulfur, so it works in both ways. But mercury, I kind of like didn't really have. I think salt, like Thalassa, also represents salt because it's obviously the ocean. Mercury kind of like I found hard to place. I think mercury I attributed more towards like maybe like closer to, like, obviously Mercury is Quicksilver, so I don't know. I don't really have a specific place for it on the album. I feel like it could be in multiple songs.
Sure.
But I think the closest one would be The Alchemist, because it actually mentions like silver tides and stuff like that. So I feel like Mercury gets attributed to that song more than anything. But yeah, for Vermilion, it's the same thing. It's the rebirth of the male aspect of the album, where they basically wake up on this shore of vermilion sand, and, you know, waking up in this desert after drowning at sea. Like, they shouldn't be alive. They should just be a body that washes up on shore, but they come out of it as something else, and they have to find their way through this huge desert of vermilion sand that, you know, basically acts as an ordeal in its own way to kind of like find their way out of this thing now. So like they're trying to find each other at this point, and rejoin into this, you know, this like apotheosis, which is the next step, which basically like is unification. So this is like them both being reborn in these two sister songs, and attempting to, you know, reconciliate and join up again as like meet and connect. So
awesome.
Yeah, Vermilion is really just like a song that inhabits like a lot of those different things, like earth, fire, and sulfur all at once. And then Enchante is obviously very heavily earth based, but still has elements of all those things. So yeah, I guess in terms of the hero's journey, this is kind of like the second threshold in a way. Like it's the rebirth, even though apotheosis in the hero's journey comes a lot later. But it's basically like, you could look at it as like there's something called the belly of the whale in the hero's journey, which basically, if you look at stuff like Pinocchio, they took that very literally. And it's like when the stakes of the story are at the highest. So like, if you think of it, you know, in the sense of this story, it's like if they don't find each other, they will be like incomplete. So that the high stake is that they need to find each other to be complete. But this is also like the just like there's a refusal of what do you call it? It's a refusal of the call at the beginning of the album and at the beginning of the hero's journey. Similar to, like I said, Frodo, he doesn't want to go to Mount Doom. He doesn't want to take the ring to Mordor.
Yeah.
There's also a refusal of return. So there's like the doubt and you know, once they're finished on Mount Doom, he's like, oh, I don't know if I can make it back. I can't go back to the Shire. It's not the same anymore. I've seen too much of this world outside that it'll never be the same again. You know, there's a refusal of return as well, which I feel like is what this point is. And it's basically both of these songs together basically reflect that by saying like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this journey. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do what is needed. And both of those songs represent that. Like, it's like this push and pull, but more so pull in the direction of doubt and like being unable to, like, almost being restrained in a way. You know, like this desert is so vast that like it feels insurmountable. It feels like you'll never get through it. You'll die of thirst or hunger before you reach the end of it, or find an oasis or like something to keep you going. And then Enchante is like literally being restricted by this dense forest that similar to the desert that looks endless, that it goes on forever, that you know, there are things in this forest that want to, you know, either, you know, in a like a more fantastical sense, like keep you there in a sense, like that it's going to be where you stay forever. And I feel like this is that part of the story that's overcoming those ordeals and finding each other again to reconnect. So
Awesome.
Yeah, we can go and listen to those back to back. Yeah.
Awesome. That was really cool to listen you explain that. This is Enchante and Vermilion Sister Songs. This is track 8 and 9.
say. I can't see beyond the mirage, and the rain abandons me. While the sun tries to tear me apart, will the night comfort me and take my hand and guide me through these forsaken sands? Far away, lost in times, bare as birth, here he stands. In a desert of a million waves, folding over like glimmering flames. In the sun-kissed body will not leave, left to wander aimlessly. And even when all seems lost, the stars show the way. But where can he find them when the sun steals the day? I can't see beyond the mirage, and the rain abandons me. While the sun tries to tear me apart, will the night comfort me? Sing your tears till you have enough rain to wash this mirage away. To wash this mirage away. To wash this mirage away. A billion raindrops bless the vermilion, and his eyes no longer need to deceive him. There's no more time, no more pain, for this is the way they've been made.
There was Enchante into Vermilion. That were, again, so good. Rolfie also says that feels like Vermilion is up there for one of the best VH songs, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I love that song. It was definitely like a lot of work on the sound design for both of those, and with Enchante in specific, I again circling back to that idea of giving people something unexpected. Like I don't think people expected like it's basically like an interlude almost in Enchante, like a 1 minute, almost 1 minute and 30-second long interlude before the vocals even come into the song. And I really wanted that there because the album really needed like a not only a transitional period from Breathless, but it needed like just a moment to sit and rest, or like to kind of just I don't know, just meditate in its own, just take a break in a breath, ironically after Breathless. But just to slow down a little bit, and that's what these two tracks try to achieve. They're a bit slower in tempo, and a bit more a little bit softer and a little bit more like contemplative than all the tracks before. So Enchante having that like 1 minute 20-second instrumental break at the very start, I really like that, because Thrice does that a lot as well, like especially in maybe their new album, Horizons West. I think Unite of West, the last song on that album, has like it opens with a very long instrumental section, which is just, it really sets the mood. It really just lets you kind of stew in the atmosphere and the emotion that's, slowly building across that section. And I feel like I just wanted something that just let you just simmer, like just slow down and just absorb everything that's happened so far, and just absorb like the sound of this song, and yeah, just set the mood as much as I could. So there was a lot of work that went into the sound design of that song, trying to make it feel like it's in a forest, not just like about a forest, but like it's being played like in a forest, like the reverbs and the delays that we used, and just making it feel like with the delays, like the sounds are like reflecting off the trees, because that's what you would get when you like from an echo in a forest. The reason that the echo is, can be so, there can be a delay in a forest is because there's so much for the sound to bounce off. There's so many trees, so many, it carries so far because of those of the trees and how sound reflects. So I wanted to try and achieve that with like the delays and the effects in the songs themselves. In the song itself. And for Vermilion, it's more difficult than you would assume to make something feel deserty. Like you have to use very specific types of drums, like congas and bongos and timbales, all stuff that I had no experience with, like stuff that I had to really like research, and in terms of the sound design, like really try to make certain frequencies pop with, like, especially during mixing, to get very specific sounds so that it felt like it should. And using all those references like near replicants, like Lost Forest, Gerudo Desert theme song from Ocarina of Time, like I said, like using all of those things to try and pinpoint what makes a song feel deserty. And Igor in general did a fucking phenomenal job with Enchante and Vermilion in terms of like nailing the atmosphere and the key of the songs and everything, just to make it feel like it should, and like the songs are transportive, and you can feel like you're in a forest and feel like you're in a desert. I think he did a fucking phenomenal job there, and that did a lot of the heavy lifting. A lot of the sound design is still extremely important, and a lot of work went into that. But without the melodies that he wrote, without the chords, everything like that, the additional instruments, like he wrote all the drums. Like I might have like done the sound design and I might have found the correct drums to use, but he wrote all those parts, obviously. I go in and I do a little bit of editing and a little bit of restructuring and a little bit of, tweaking, but the majority of stuff, it's his vision and his idea of what that sound is. And I think he absolutely nailed those songs for sure.
He absolutely did. Big props to Igor. Up next, we've got track 10, Elixir.
Yeah, so Elixir is basically like the unification of those two aspects that have been in the story so far. And it's basically like, I think originally I had it as the reddening, but that kind of goes too quick. The reddening is more, or when the Philosopher's Stone becomes red, which is Rubido, that's kind of like the end of the process, but we're not there yet. So I see Elixir as like the whitening stage of this, which is very far down the list from when we were at the blackening of it, which is the putrefaction, which is Vanishing Act. But between Vanishing Act and Elixir is basically like the ordeal and the process of making the Philosopher's Stone. So you don't get to whiteness until like the purification of those things. So this is essentially going through all those ordeals and doing that process step by step until you get to the purification of those things. And after the whole death and rebirth, so like death is like the putrefaction, and then the rebirth is like the coming out the other side into the purification side of things. So this is like the whitening of like the process. Like I said, there's 4 steps: there's black, white, yellow, and then red. So this is technically the second step. Yellow doesn't really get, it's not, especially in like pop culture, it's not really referenced all that often. So I don't really have a song for yellowing in the album. I guess you could attribute it to like Heaven Sent, or like it's called Citrinitas, which is basically like the the step before it becomes perfect. So it's like kind of like imperfect. It's purified, but it's imperfect. And it's like, I guess it's like kind of like attributed to like vitriol and stuff like that, which when you hear vitriol in English, usually you think of that as like disliking someone, or like you have vitriol towards someone, where it's like you feel a certain negative way towards something. But I think in alchemy, it's like it's an actual it's an element, and it's actually like a chemical compound. I feel like I attribute that more towards like either The Alchemist or Heaven Sent. I don't really have an answer for it. Heaven Sent is also pretty like heavily Mercury themed. So I guess you could tack it onto either one of those two songs. But yeah, Elixir is basically, obviously, the name Elixir. It's the alchemical mixture of all these elements that have come before in the album to form one thing. So we're almost at like the process of like perfection, or like the unification of all these different elements into one. But this song like came very late in the process of writing this album. It was probably the last song. We had a different song that was called Elixir that was more of like a slow, kind of like slowed down a little too much for where the album was at. Like we'd already been through like Enchanté and Vermilion, and the album slows down quite a bit compared to the other songs on the album with those two. So I'm like, I don't really want something to suck the momentum out of the song that much. I still want it to be kind of like a low-key song, but let's experiment with a different like genre or a different sound to both keep it like low-key and sort of soft, but at the same time bring up the energy again into the last 3 tracks of the album. So this one came very late in writing the album for sure. Literally the last song. And it came after tracking drums. So we tracked all the drums for the album, and then we wrote this song, which was, it was kind of just like a last minute thing, but it was really needed because the album just didn't click with me until this one was in there. So yeah, that's in terms of the hero's journey, I feel like it's maybe the crossing of like the 3rd threshold. Like it's you were almost getting to the end, and the last act is about unification. So this is like catharsis and like a climax of the album in a way, but more like low key in a sense, where it's like, I guess it's another plot point of the album. It's like a MacGuffin device where it's like, this is what they're trying to get at. This is what they're trying to achieve. And in the lyrics, it like incorporates all of the previous, like elements, and similar to Yukon at the very end, it talks about like all the things that have happened up to this point. So it's like a summary in a way of a lot of those things.
Awesome. This is track 10, Elixir.
Couldn't sleep through the night, the earth keeps me awake. I see such flammable brain in entropy. 'Cause she's out of
What a song. Again, I like that song because it's so sort of, well, it's not, it's like thematically it's very sort of fits in perfectly, but I don't know, even the ending there, it kind of gives me some like the Midnight vibes, not obviously full on, but bit synth wavy towards the end, which I absolutely love.
it was more inspired by like House of Protection, which I was really into at the time, like
Sick.
very, yeah, not really synth wavy, but like I guess the bells might have that sort of quality to them, but yeah,
that was
like,
what I was getting.
Definitely drum and bass inspired for sure.
No, definitely, I hear that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to track 11, The Alchemist.
Yeah, so this is like the penultimate. For me, it's like the penultimate song of the album, even though it's not literally, because it's kind of like the confrontation of all three of these characters that we've been following so far. Whether that's one character with, you know, like a personality or a being that's broken into three different parts, like reforming or like reconnecting. But it's basically like the creator of this whole thing speaking to those other aspects, and kind of like also the whole, this thing that has become whole, you know, like questioning if it's been worth it, if it's been, you know, like it's once again touching on like doubt and like, is immortality really something that is desirable? Is it really something, you know, like in a lot of like stories that touch on the same thing, you know, usually immortality is more of a curse than it is a blessing, and it's something that people always assume that they want, but as soon as they get it, like many things, you know, once you're chasing something for so long that once you finally get it, it's, you know, it feels kind of empty and kind of it doesn't feel it like you thought it would. So this is kind of like going into, I feel like Hidden Realms, Vanishing Acts, like the first 4 songs on the album, like Act 1, and then actually, sorry, no, there's only 3 acts to the album. Like weirdly enough, there's not 4. There's 4 elements to the album, but only 3 acts.
Right.
Because the hero's journey has technically 4 thresholds, but only a 3-act structure. So Act 2 is like Nausicaa, Thalassa, Breathless, Enchante, and Vermilion, and then Act 3 is Unification, which is all of these last 4. So Elixir, The Alchemist, Heaven Sent, Yukon. And The Alchemist is basically like the song that obviously touches on turning something from base metal into gold, so lead into gold, which is actually a lyric that Trenton helped me really nail down, because I was like, I really needed something to kind of like hit that nail in the head, and he really helped with writing that in the end, just the chorus part, and helping me get that to make sense. So really, like, obviously for those like familiar with Full Metal Alchemist, like talking about like equivalent exchange and like what comes from gaining immortality, like what do you lose? Do you lose like what does that affect? You know, if you're going to live forever, you have to lose something else in the process, which is that, you know, like, is that the desire to not, you know, like once you get it, do you no longer desire it? Like, is that the sort of monkey's paw of the whole thing, where, you know, you get to live forever, but then you lose everything else along the way.
Yeah.
So you basically have to give up everything else to live forever, and then it becomes like a sour. It sours you on the whole thing.
Sure.
It's kind of like, well, shit, I've got to now deal with everyone that I've ever known, you know, disappearing one day, and it's, I mean, many stories, you know, it's kind of a cliche, but many stories that are about alchemy or have alchemical things in their story, and about, you know, that sort of thing, they touch on the same themes. So yeah, it's really like, just touching on that it's the first song out of these 4 that really touch, actually no, like Elixir does a little bit as well, but the song to really touch on the aspect of that equivalent exchange that you have to go through to achieve this like incomprehensible thing of living forever. So yeah.
Awesome. Let's go for it then. This is track 11, The Alchemist.
Is taking place. A silver tide, violent waves, is crashing right through my veins. And slowly I am paralyzed. My atoms all reorganized, turning to gold. A wiser man once said, "Son, rest your weary head. You'll learn to conjure golden light on shakes and unkept beds. Son, you can sleep when you're dead. You'll yearn and wonder how it connects." I'm losing breath, and as the air escapes, it all comes plummeting down. I watch the elements wax and wane, invigorated like a flame, always changing shape. A silver tide, violent waves, is crashing right through my veins. Slowly I am paralyzed. The alchemist turned me to gold. Skin deep down into my soul. Fire slaves and set my bones into me and my own bones. Will I ever see the sun again? 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 Like the alchemist foretold, I'm turning to gold. A wiser man once said, "Son, rest your weary head. You'll learn to conjure golden light on shakes and unkept beds. Son, you can sleep when you're dead. You'll yearn and wonder how it connects." I'm turning to gold. A wiser man once said, turning to gold. Son, rest your weary head. You'll learn to conjure golden
Again, another great tune. That was track 11, The Alchemist. So good. There's that little melody as well. I can't get enough of it. It's such an earworm.
Yeah, I love that lead guitar melody. That's one of my favorite songs on the album, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I can't remember when that song was written actually, but that one, I think that was written like together with Yukon, Heaven Sent, and this song were all kind of like written around the same time. So it's actually kind of fitting that all these chunks of the album are kind of like separated into the times that they were written almost.
Yeah.
Like almost unintentionally. Like it just kind of worked out that way. But yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, no, that's such a good song. Up next we have track 12, Heaven Sent.
Yeah, so Heaven Sent is, I feel like, the apotheosis of the whole album. So this is when the unification really like is finished in a way. Like they've been heaven sent in a way where it's like this thing that like shouldn't exist on Earth has been created in a way. Not from a biblical sense necessarily, because this album is not really, it doesn't really touch on religion at all. Like, I'm not religious myself. But alchemy definitely definitely overlaps with, like Gnostic theology and Gnosticism pretty pretty heavily. Not that this album touches on much of that. I feel like with like Idola, all of their albums, everything until their latest album, that touches a lot more on the side of the Gnosticism and Gnostic theology than this album does. Like there's so much to alchemy and so much that it overlaps with that it's hard to fit it all into like one album.
Sure.
So I chose to just focus this album to the process itself and not really all the minutia that's around alchemy, like the religious aspects of it. But like that's in so many things, like Gnostic theology, alchemy, that's in like Evangelion, like behind me, a bunch of Evangelion shit. It's in so many stories and it has so much depth and richness to it that I love that sort of stuff, even though I'm not religious, but like there's so much interesting mythology and so many interesting stories in those things and how they're interpreted over so many different iterations. Like there's so much to mine there for narratives and stories. And I feel like even if it's been done to death, I feel like it's still so interesting.
Yeah. Like
anytime something uses something based on Gnostic theology or alchemy, I'm just always like, I don't know what it is. I just always get easily invested because it's just so interesting to me.
Sure.
But basically, Heaven Sent is just the apotheosis, and this is also in the hero's journey. So it's essentially like the third threshold. It's the finalization and the climax to everything that's happened so far. So like resurrection, completion of the great work, which is essentially what the Philosopher's Stone is called in alchemy, the great work. There's something in the hero's journey called the Master of Two Worlds. So essentially this is one character coming from like being a regular person and transforming themselves into something greater than all of these things combined. And yeah, basically beginning to wrap up the story essentially, which the lyrics kind of talk about as well in the song. So yeah, it's just pushing towards that final goal and achieving it. And then Yukon afterwards touches on again with the same sort of themes that The Alchemist does, about what that cost is for achieving this certain thing.
Right. Cool. That's really interesting. Track 12, Rolfie, I will, once we've listened to the album, I think it ties in well to ask Tom that question. This is track 12, Heaven Sent. That ending gets me every time. Again, I think you talked on it earlier that this album doesn't have as much electronics, but obviously the end to there, it's almost like sort of some classic sort of early metalcore. Maybe not early, sort of 2010s metalcore. With reminds me actually a little bit. I don't know if you remember "Still Remains," but do you remember the end of "Stay Captive"? That song that reminds me a little bit of that ending.
I don't know it.
No,
I don't know it. This album was inspired by. There's a song called. I think Igor was inspired by this song. Probably it's a Japanese artist called Nano. And I think this song is inspired by the song called "Savior of Song," which is a really good song as well. But definitely influenced by that.
Awesome. Yeah, we did have one comment. We did have one comment saying that this could be an anime opening theme and it'd fit perfectly.
I feel like a few of them could. I feel like Igor is definitely very inspired by that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the closing and final track, Yukon, which I've got to say is that could be well up there for me, maybe tied with Thalassa. I absolutely love this song.
Yeah, me too. This was a hard song to kind of, I guess, conceptualize, because it needed to wrap up this whole story, all of these different themes, all these different events taking place. So the lyrics had a lot of like heavy lifting to do. But essentially this song is like this song itself is like a recipe in and of itself. Because it goes into talking about like the summary of like the steps taken to achieve, you know, the solidification of the Philosopher's Stone, which is like, and the lyrics literally outline this throughout the song, but it goes from like calcination, sublimation, solution, putrefaction, distillation, coagulation, and then the tincture, which is the elixir. So the lyrics actually touch on that in sequence. And yeah, it was a hard song to figure out lyrically, because it needed to tie back to the first song on the album. It needed to tie into the concept of immortality and this is the song that for me reflects Rubido, which is the reddening, which is the finalization of everything essentially. And the reason it's called Yukon is not because I love Canada. I mean Canada's cool, but it is named after the place in Canada, like the Yukon Mountains, but it's because Yukon, and I don't remember how I figured this out, but or how I found this out, sorry, or I don't remember what I was looking at or researching when I found it, but the Yukon area is one of the only places on the face of the earth that within like a small radius there exists mountains, there exists a desert, there exists a vast body of water, and there exists forests. So it's all like in one densely packed location. So like all four elements in terms of alchemy are all represented there extremely well. Like I think of like the desert as fire, just because it's always so fucking hot in the desert usually. So pretty much everything is inhabited in that one space, like the mountains, air, forest, earth, desert, fire, and then a lake, or I think it's a lake. It's like a very, very big lake. Or there's a lake that like runs through the Yukon or something. So like everything is represented in one place. And I thought that was an interesting way to kind of like visualize and conceptualize this closing track of like everything becoming one, everything being in the same place, everything being in that one body. It's also the highest mountain peak in Canada, I had written here. So it's not only a mountain, it doesn't only have mountains, but it also has the highest mountains in Canada, which is like, which fits even more. Yeah. And it's also the world's smallest desert. So it has literally everything, and lakes connected to the ocean. So yeah, it's really just, it was like the perfect kind of way to bottle everything up and package it for like a final song. So yeah, in terms of like the hero's journey, it's probably like the fourth threshold when you're like returning, but you're returning changed in a way. So it's like the freedom to live, but like at what cost? At what have you exchanged to get to this point? But it's the return to that original world that you came from, although it's not like I pointed out earlier with like Lord of the Rings, where Frodo returns to the Shire and he says like, it's not the same anymore. I can't stay here after everything I've seen. It's just it's too different, you know, like it's too small, and it doesn't feel the same anymore. So that's why he goes to the Grey Havens. So yeah, it's like that same sort of feeling. It's like you've returned to this world that you knew, but it's incredibly unfamiliar now because of the things that you've gone through, and it will never look the same again. So yeah, that's pretty much how the album rounds out. And you know, the final mantra or the final phrase of the album being like eternity is hidden in plain sight. Or sorry, eternity can't be seen, it's hidden in plain sight, is basically like, it's not less necessarily a question, but it's like it's trying to illustrate that you know what eternity is it can be literal, it can be something that lasts forever, but that can be inhabited in many different things. Like a person's memory can exist forever as long as people are alive to carry it on and tell other people about it. So it kind of just reflects like what eternity could mean for many different people. It can mean many different things, aside from just being something that lives forever, or like literally living forever is like an immortal thing.
Sure.
But it's like hidden in plain sight is meant to illustrate that it's like eternity is everywhere around us. It exists in many different forms and facets, but we don't often acknowledge it. Like we don't often acknowledge that like we're also afraid of death, that we don't stop to realize that things, you know, many things live on in perpetuity for a long time. Maybe not forever, but you know, for a very long time. Like we still remember things from, you know, billions of years ago. So are those in a sense eternal? Like what? It's like difficult to define, but it's like something that you don't think about, which is what that phrase is kind of meant to elicit, I guess.
Awesome. Let's play the final track. This is the closing track, Yukon, and then Rolfie I will ask Tom that question whilst we're wrapping up.
Looking down at the realms we used to run, and the world that we used to call our home. Hands of time can touch us now, as the clouds start to fall down. From the valleys and the forests of Delphi to the mountains that bathed in the sky, when we pulled the moonlight down and engraved it in the ground. Alchemized into one, alchemized into one. We've walked this earth for 1,000 days, for grief and gold our lives been exchanged. A fire rages above the night.
And that is Yukon, and that is Hidden Realms front to back. Yeah,
I love how it. I love how it circles back around to the first track again. Like it unintentionally, like Yukon was not really like ever. I didn't, until I finished it. Obviously, I didn't know that it was going to be the final track on the album.
Yeah.
But it really connects back to that first one, like in terms of like how it ends with the bells, and then Hidden Realm starts with the vibraphone and the bells again.
Yeah.
It kind of, to me, it makes the album feel like cyclical in a way, which is also like based on that whole concept of like eternity and it just going around and around and again, like an Ouroboros, which again is a imagery of alchemy and Gnosticism, which is kind of cool. So the whole album feels like it's just like eating itself, which is interesting to me.
No, definitely.
But yeah, thank you for everyone for listening to it with us.
No, thank you as always, mate. I really do appreciate you always. A lot of love. There is just one question from Rolfie I did want to come back to. Regarding sort of the album and Valiant Hearts sort of discography. He says, I know Hidden Realms has just come out, but is there ideas that the next Valiant Hearts album will tie into the journey like Wanderlust, Odyssey and Yonder does, or is it just a standalone journey?
No, Hidden Realms is just a standalone, so it's just its own thing.
Yeah.
There's not any... honestly, Wanderlust, Odyssey and Yonder aren't even really, and I've said this before, they're not really connected through a story. They're connected through thematic... through themes. It's just a theme of this journey, and Hidden Realms is its own journey. It's its own thing, but it's just self-contained. So it's like an album that I feel like takes the best parts of all those previous albums and puts it into one self-contained story and journey and does the same thing. So yeah, like even the character from the cover art, his inspiration was the character from Wanderlust in the videos that are on YouTube of the visualizers for the songs. There's the character that's in like the cloak and has the staff and the scepter and the little fox that didn't make it into this version of this character. I guess they're not the same character, to be clear. They're just it's like a spiritual successor or like inspiration for like that same sort of thing. Like I just took, because that character never like really went anywhere or never really like continued on. It got changed, kind of like retconned almost to the character from Odyssey. That's why I don't think of it as like the same thing. I think they're all like different characters on their own sort of journeys, and they're just connected by that thread of all those three albums being about a journey, not necessarily the same journey, but just like journeys in general and traveling and getting from one place to the next, or the phrase of it, like it's about the journey and not the destination, right?
Sure.
So it's just like taking that into a literal sense. But yeah, Hidden Realms is like very self-contained. I don't really want to I have no plan to continue like the theming or the narrative of this album past that. Whatever comes next would probably be something completely different, I would imagine, and we don't know what that is yet. I'm working on Galleons now, which is also a fucking concept album apparently now. Like I've literally written out what have I written so far? I've written in terms of the summary, I think I'm like 10 pages deep on the summary of the story. So
that's very exciting.
It's more of like a sci-fi sort of thing. So yeah, definitely different. But it's like, I find that interesting now to challenge myself in those ways, because in a sense, music has become like sort of second nature to what I do. So like, not that it's not challenging anymore. It definitely is, but like trying to find new ways to make it challenging is what's been, keeping things fun for me. Like finding ways to like write stories or write like concept albums, or find a way to keep myself invested in writing more music, and definitely a lot of it, because we've already worked on a lot of stuff, but yeah, I can't say that the next Valiant Hearts album will be a concept album or what narrative it'll have or what it'll follow, but I'm sure that it'll just be whatever happens. Yeah, it definitely won't follow this, like, in terms of narrative.
Yeah, it'll just come naturally during the sort of the process.
Yeah, and I have no idea what that's going to be yet. Like, I think James Cameron said something recently when someone asked him about the new Avatar movie, which I'm actually going to see that today.
Sick.
But he said, someone asked him, like, oh, what have you, like, when's Avatar 4 coming out? Like, what are your plans for Avatar 4? And he's like, that's like asking a woman who's just given birth while she's crowning and pushing out a baby when she's having her next baby.
Yeah. No, that's a really good sort of way to explain it. Well, Tom, as always, mate, thank you so much for getting up so early.
Yeah, no worries.
Giving your time. This is sort of the fourth one now we've done, and they're always such a pleasure.
Yeah, it is.
It's always. I personally find it mind blowing your talent of not just the music, and obviously props to Igor as well and everyone involved, but sort of the storytelling and sort of the research and everything you put into it kind of blows my mind. So thank you. Enjoy Avatar, and I'm sure when
thank you, dude.
I'm sure when Galleons drops, we'll be back again for another couple of hours to go through it.
Yeah, definitely, because it's definitely.
Yeah, no, thanks as always, and thanks everybody for watching as always. If you miss it, there'll be the VOD.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
I don't know how long the VODs stay up on Twitch, but I will upload it to YouTube tomorrow, because I know a lot.
I think it's a month on Twitch, unless they've changed it. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, it's all recorded, so it'll go on YouTube. I know a lot of people have actually watched the last ones on there as well.
I think on Twitch you can highlight certain VODs. Like, I think you don't get to highlight all of the VOD, but I think it's like you can highlight up to, I'm not sure, it might only be up to 2 hours, but yeah, if it's on YouTube, then that's fine.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody. You take care, and we'll see you at the next one.